This session is on assuming the best. Every year we get this wonderful multi-page document that's called our teacher contract. And in that teacher contract, and every district will paraphrase it just a little bit differently, in that contract there's a clause called telling you what your job is to do is you are here to teach content as well as teach students appropriate behavior. Now I don't know about you, but I missed that clause because I would go right to that page and I want to see how much I was making and I'd want to sign on the line and get that contract in as soon as possible. Maybe you guys were like that too. The other thing is about that is often that's written in invisible ink. So our first assumption is we are to teach content to students as well as appropriate behaviors. Now raise your hand if you went into teaching to be a behavior specialist. No one or very few people go into education or teaching to be a behavior specialist. And the reality of it is because a lot of times we don't have the tools or skills to do it. So think about this. Think about the assumption that you're going into your class and you're going to teach content. And you have a student that's misbehaving. So then you start to resent that student because they're actually impacting your ability to teach your other students. But on the other hand, if you go into the classroom with the idea that teaching appropriate behaviors is just important as teaching content, then when you have a student that's misbehaving, you're going to be able to be grateful for that student. Because you can actually thank that student for allowing you to do the other half of your job, and that's teaching appropriate behaviors. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to always be grateful for a student that's misbehaving. But I'm going to say that when you realize that teaching appropriate behaviors in the classroom are just as important as content, then you'll be able to, when you're in a disciplinary moment with that student, you'll be able to talk to them a whole differently than what you would if you did not believe that. We know that we have kids ages 2 to 18 that when a teacher starts resenting, kids pick up on that. And what are kids going to do? They're going to dive in and they're going to go right after that. They're going to dig. So our first assumption then is that teachers are there to teach content, and just as importantly is to teach appropriate behaviors. Our second assumption comes from students want to learn appropriate behaviors. That's great, isn't it? Because that's part of our job. So why not? Let's teach those appropriate behaviors, and let's get the students so that they have successful classroom experiences. So raise your hand if you ever heard that students will test you on the first day of school. Okay? Raise your hand if you were tested last year. You know what? There's no avoiding it. Students are going to test us. But if we assume students want to learn appropriate behavior, then guess what? They want us to pass the test. So think about this. It's the first day of school, and these students come in, and they have this invisible contract. And that invisible contract says, teacher, I want to learn in a safe and structured environment. Our part of the contract says, students, I will do everything in my power to teach you appropriate behaviors in a safe and structured environment. Okay? So think about this. We have first day of school, we have our students carrying this invisible contract, and we have a student that's misbehaving. Now, they're not doing a lot of bad behaviors, just some minor things. And all of a sudden, you get to that student, and you come down on them like a ton of bricks. That student is going to say, okay, think of my contract. This is not a safe environment. Therefore, the teacher did not honor the contract, so I don't know if I can trust this teacher. On the other hand, we have a student in our class, and they're misbehaving, and they have this invisible contract. And they're misbehaving, and you just kind of ignore it. Or just kind of say, pat their chair, but you don't really deal with it. That student is saying, teacher, I don't think you're honoring the contract. Because this is not a structured environment. It's not a structured environment. But I'll tell you what, when students get safety and structure consistently enforced, when they get that, they begin to trust us, and the testing will reduce. So think about this. two pillars of classroom management are safety and structure. Safety and structure. So I'm going to demonstrate this. I'm going to do two different demonstrations, and I'm going to have you kind of look for the disciplinary moment in these demonstrations. So you're all in my class, and we have a student, her name's Brittany, and Brittany's kind of being a little stinker. Okay? So I'm going to start, and I'm going to demonstrate, and let's see what you pick up. Okay, here we go. Good morning, class. Today we're going to start a unit on the California Gold Rush. Brittany. And what I'd like you to do now is raise your hand, and I'd like to know what you know about the California Gold Rush. Okay, stop. Now, did you notice the discipline? Did it seem very effective? Do you think Brittany knows what I want? Do you think Brittany's going to stop? Probably not. I'm probably not going to get the reaction I want. This is what we call drive-by discipline. Drive-by discipline comes out of the very heart that I'm in this class to teach content, and whatever else happens as far as discipline, I just want to get through it as fast as I can. Okay? Second example. Again, it's the same class. We have Brittany, and Brittany's acting up. So here we go. Good morning, class. Today we're going to start a new unit on the California Gold Rush. I would like, Brittany, stop. Thank you. I would like you to raise your hand and let me know what you know about the California Gold Rush. Okay, let's stop. The discipline moment, was it different? Did you notice? Okay. We used with Brittany a strategy called tone, volume, and posture. Did you notice the difference? The tone was firm, the volume was a little lower, and I squared my posture up to Brittany. Now, let's talk about this for a minute. Disciplining across the room is not the greatest way to discipline students, right? Ideally, you'd go up and you'd whisper to the student, da-da-da-da-da, what you needed. However, that's not the reality of it, because you're teaching, you see a student misbehaving, we need to intervene as quickly as possible so that the student knows that they're off task, we can get them back on. So, that's just the reality of teaching. Sometimes we have to teach we have to discipline across the classroom. Okay? So let's think about this. Let's think about what we just did with Brittany. We used tone, volume, and posture, and that's our first strategy today, using tone, volume, and posture. This means you use a calm, serious tone. Okay? Calm, serious tone. You lower the volume of your voice, and then you square that posture up. Now, the reason why we've used the posture is probably the most important, because most of our communication is nonverbal. Most of our communication is nonverbal, and students will really pick up on that nonverbal, okay? And it really communicates the seriousness. The low tone, the calm tone and the low volume then helps back that up. So it's really important. So our first strategy is using tone, volume, and posture. Now I know there's some teachers saying, yeah, but, and these are probably some of our special ed teachers, because they're saying, I have some behavior challenge kids. I have some kids with emotional issues. And if I posture to them, what's going to happen? They may escalate. But remember, this is just one strategy in our bag of strategies. Not going to work for all the kids, but I'll tell you what, give it a try, because it's worth that, and I think it's going to work for a lot of kids. That's why really knowing who our students are and knowing when we can do the posturing to them is really important. But generally, it's a good, quick discipline method for in your classroom. Thank you.